Sunday Self-Love with me as Amar. Today we're going to sit down with Ashay and discuss body positivity. Hey.
Hey.
Thank you for welcoming us into your home on your couch with like this deliciousness. It's so good.
My name Ashay. I started doing theater at around age 13. I joined the theater company at age 11, but I wasn't really doing much but like being in a theater company. And I went to school for theater, but I really discovered solo performance.
And we're in Atlanta, but you're originally from...
Originally from St. Louis, Missouri. Shout out. And my family's from, most of my family's from the Midwest. But I've been in Atlanta since I was 8, so it is like partially my home too. But I really did enjoy my time as a kid in St. Louis, and I have fond memories. So when people ask me where I'm from, I'm like, I'm from St. Louis and Atlanta.
Okay, so I'm curious to know, for you, like, what does body positivity mean? Like, how would you define that for yourself?
I think it's a very like personal journey and a personal definition that folks should have. For me, body positivity is loving my body at the state it is. And that doesn't mean that I don't like wish different things for my body. It doesn't mean that I don't want to work my body. It just means that like I'd rather not shame my body because I have to live in this body every day. And I got to body positivity through the fat positive movement, and I'm really here for fat positivity. I'm happy to be fat. Like, fuck all these people telling you that you shouldn't be fat or like being fat is bad. But for me, I feel like I think body positivity and fat positivity are in the same lane, but they're two different things, right? Like, I feel like fat positivity is accepting and loving fat folks and like understanding that there's a level of shame to fat bodies. And I think body positivity is more of a like an inclusive, body, about everybody's body is shamed in some ways, but fat folks are definitely at a margin, and that margin even like spreads from like, you could talk about acceptable fat bodies to like non-acceptable fat bodies who are not proportionately, you may be fat, but maybe you have like the Coke bottle shape. Then, there's a very different level of fatphobia that you experience. And I think that the fat positive movement is about really illuminating those particular things, where I feel like the body positivity movement is about, all bodies, and essentially the fat body positivity movement is about all bodies, but it's about talking about that particular intersection.
And do you feel like this is one of those moments where like language really matters? Because I guess that's what I'm getting from what you're saying. For myself, I'm like, language matters because I do feel like there's this like apoliticalness about saying body positivity, in terms of the fact that there's folks who will say they're body positive but will still shame fat folks.
Exactly. Language matters, but I think that body positivity should still be a term. I don't think that it's just like you should like erase, body positivity because fat folks are in the margin. I think that we should just be really specific about the two different movements and about how they link up, right? Because essentially they are talking about bodies. And I've had to live in my body all my life, and I lived in several bodies. I mean, I've been fat most of my life, but I lived a body where I was the cute little small child too. So like, I don't know, I think those different things for different bodies, right? Like skinny folks may be shamed, and and more, and they're not. I would say skinny folks are shamed by particular I feel like it's like light skinned folks, right? Like skinny folks are like, oh, you skinny, you need to gain some weight, but it's never like you shouldn't exist. You are so skinny that like that you should like lock yourself up in a room, or you should die, or the world should not accommodate you. Where I feel like a fat positivity movement lane is saying like this is the realness for like the fact that fat phobia exists, and that folks are right, like we are shamed for our bodies. Like the world is not made for us. Doors are too small sometimes. There are not clothes made for us. There aren't models really walking our bodies. There's a few, but there aren't, like, we don't see our bodies illuminated in beautiful light. And we're starting to see it a little more, right? Like, because once you start getting more visible and like your movements get more visible, then they try to put examples of you in front of you, but they never really go that much further, right? It's like a lot of people have been talking about this new show, This Is Us, or This Is Something. My mom watched it. She's like, oh, I just love this show. I really identify with the fat character. And my mom's not fat, but she was saying that she identifies with the character for me, which is nice. Like, I know that my mom's recognizing that, like, there's a struggle for like society to accept fatness, and that folks who are fat, not all folks, but I know for me, struggle with like accepting my body sometimes. Like, as confident as I am about being like, I'm a fat bitch, I'm a fat queer fat femme, I'm fat and black, I still struggle with accepting my body. So I saw how my mom was making those correlations, but also I felt like that story and the way that they like played that story is kind of the typical fat story, right? It's like this fat person, they're in this, they're going to Overeaters Anonymous, and they're doing, they're like thinking about their body. Like, no, fat folks do run. Fat folks do go to the gym. Fat folks do eat healthy. But like, what about the fat folks who don't? What about the fat folks who are not like trying to be up in the gym? They eating a lot of junk food and they just living their lives. Like, what about that fatness, right? And what about the fat folks who are in a struggle at the margins? Like me, I'm a diabetic, and I'm open about it because when I got diagnosed with diabetes, I was in college, and it really changed my life a lot. And to be a diabetic, I have to, be conscious of my intake, my food, my sugars. And I'm someone who struggles with my eating. I do have an eating disorder. I have an overeating disorder. And the only reason I'm comfortable saying that is because through art, I was able to really admit that. And having an eating disorder means that I really do have to look at how my fatness comes with a level of self-harm, right? Like me feeling like, me coping, right, with food, but also coping with food, like, created this body that, like, I gotta worry about my blood sugars. I gotta worry about living. I gotta worry about, what I eat. And I think, like, sometimes when I think about the fat positivity movement, it's like, well, fuck that. That's doctors. They think you just fat for, a reason. But I'm like, diabetes is not real. So for me, it's like, I have to really think about those things. And I have to, like, think about weight loss, which is something that I feel like is very, like, taboo in the fat positive community, because it's like, are you losing weight for society standards? And to be motherfucking real, like, I think it's dual things, right? Like, maybe I am losing weight. I am losing weight, one, for my health. Like, I'm trying to. I'm not actually in the process of losing weight right now, but I would be losing weight for my health because I really want to be motherfucking diabetes free. It's not very fun, y'all. is like you gotta fucking take medicine, check your blood sugar before every meal. You have to like be so on top of it. And the more you like, the more I ignore diabetes, the more medication I have to take. The more I have to like try to figure out like how I'm gonna find a routine that will have me able to take care of myself. And being an overeater and being fat, people expect that of you. So it's like already you're dealing with the fat phobia of like people being like, well, all fat folks are overeaters. But then when people are trying to like take that away, they're like, oh no, we don't want people to think all fat folks are overeaters. We eat healthy too. It's like, then where do I become invisible, but I want to be visible because I need help with that, and I need a community around that, because honestly there's more community to me around folks with eating disorders that lean towards anorexia or lean towards anorexia or bulimia, which fat folks can be anorexic and fat folks can be bulimic and fat folks can have binge eating disorders, which is what I have. And I've never really
No, I feel like you're saying some like really important things and like really highlighting the layers of the conversation, because the conversation is a kaleidoscope conversation, right? There's all these different pieces and intersections at the same time. I'm wondering for you, like, how do you, like, what are the tools that you use to feel comfortable in your body in your day-to-day life?
I have used fashion and like looking cute since I have been younger. I think when I was, going to like middle school and stuff, I kind of dressed kind of down and basic. Because I was a kid in middle school. Probably not in 8th grade, but in middle school for the most part, I was like a little kid. Like, to the point where I'm going to call you out, but I love you. My best friend when I was in middle school, she'd invite me to her birthday party in 7th grade because she was like, oh, I didn't think you was going to be cool. I didn't think you was going to enjoy it. But, little did she know, my best friend from down the street, who's a year younger than me, we actually ended up at the same skate party. And we ended up at the same skating ring. And in the skating ring, they have a club. And it's supposed to be, I think, 15 up. It's Skate Town. But honestly, it is not 15 up. Like, everybody is like 13 or like 12. So we was in there and like there were like people dancing on boys for the first time. And yeah, this was like more of a heteronormative life I was living. I was a straight little kid, although we won't get into that. But so I was like, I want to dance on the boy, and everybody was like, oh, I can't believe it. And I did. And I actually knew how to dance because my sister had taught my cousins one time, and I kind of picked up. So like I knew how to dance, so I was like, I'm gonna do it, and I did it, and it was cute. But like I realized from then on, like I kind of wanted people to perceive me as a cool person, as a popular person, as someone, even despite my size, I was, I could be cute, I could be beautiful. And I think, like, thinking about celebrities like Jill Scott and thinking about celebrities like Monique and folks who were, like, kind of in the scene in the, like, early 2000s, they were, like, bigger body girls, but men still, they still have the male gaze. They still have people looking at them. So I think dressing a certain way really helped. And then, like, really giving no fucks about having my skin out was a big deal for me. I started to just explore more things, like having my belly out. And I realized I look cute, right? Like, I look cute when I had, on a midriff top. I look cute when I wore certain outfits. And I was like, that really started to, like, give me a level of confidence, right? Mm-hmm. Because looking cute, and feeling cute and taking care of yourself is a big deal to feeling healthy. Because when I don't feel healthy, And when I am in a bad mood and when I'm hating my body and when I'm shaming myself, I go into the spaces where, no, I'm not going to take care of myself. Mm-hmm. No, I'm not going to look good I'm going to roll out the bed and just throw on a like t-shirt and baggy, you know, I don't really wear baggy pants, but you know, just some basic looks, and I'm not going to like stand out. But then, I don't know, I always have contradictions, but that's just like me, right? Because at the same time, dressing up was also me putting on a mask too, so that people would be like, hey, you know, look at this fun, bubbly, confident, fat person. And people like think that like people who are like fat positive in this bold, big way, that we don't still deal with, you know, the feeling of shame around our bodies, because that shit is ingrained in you. And I don't care, you know, how much you do, it takes a while to really unlearn these systems that we already are in. I think that it really just, it takes me to another place, and it is like a deliverance when I'm performing in that way.
Mm-hmm. It's interesting that you talk about performance in that way, because for me, I started identifying as fat personally when it was just like a series of events started happening. And then I remember I was in undergrad, and thankfully actually it was like another woman who like, she wrote a whole paper about fatphobia and all these different experiences, and I remember her presenting on it, and I started realizing, it's not like I didn't know, because obviously like I've been in my body, but it was in her talking about it in a theoretical way and talking about these different stories, I started being like, oh, there's this like way of understanding some of these experiences that I'm having. Right. But it's interesting now being in a place that I am in my body where I can like wear crop tops and like be naked. Most of this I'm like always naked actually. Right. But like I remember when I like nakedness, right? But I remember like I would never dare, like and it's not that long ago, to be quite honest with you, where I feel like I didn't feel comfortable, and for reasons, you know, like I've had like vicious like Facebook, you know, altercations. Like there's definitely a spectrum in terms of how folks are treated, and like I don't want to even pretend that I'm not aware of that. But in that moment, it kind of was like this, it kind of hit me in this realism, because I've worked so hard for myself to be okay to be like, I'm going to walk around naked and show all my skin. But I'm also like, when she said that, suddenly I was like, oh, like, it was a reminder that these are the thoughts that people have. Like, they might not say it on a regular basis, but give them a platform to say some shit, and they do, you know? But I feel because someone asked me, like, a youth I was working with actually asked me, like, how do I get it to be comfortable? I'm like, for me, I see it as a performance. Like, every day I get dressed, and what you're saying about, like, there's a faking it aspect to it, and I'm like, it's very much real. It's like, I get dressed, and I know that, like, as I enter the world, it's a performance, and I feel like that is a way that I create, like, an armor and a distance between, like, myself and, like, my own heart and soul. There, people, I'm very clear that in my body and in my being, people look at me and think, how dare you? Who you think you are, that you feel like you can be all of this? And I'm like, it has to be a performance for me to keep them over there, for me to be over here, kind of thing. I was wondering for you, in terms of like, what are your experiences? Because I feel like specifically there are experiences around like fat positivity, but also in relation to fat phobia that look different based on like queer community and Black community.
Woo. Okay. I think my experiences around, let's see, we can start with the Black community. I am not the acceptable version of fatness in the Black community. And I think what I experience is, if people are cool enough to accept me, then they accept me in this like mammified, although love for Mammy, I don't want to shame Mammy because she was a real person. She's a real like ancestor of ours. But, you know, this like non-sexual being where I'm like, you know, people will be like, I remember when I went to school, I always got the stories because I just remember these stories. There was this kid who he said like I'm not gonna name him, but he really hurt my feelings until it was my first year. And he didn't say this directly to me, but it really followed me, and I followed him throughout all my years at my college because I thought this was like horrendous. But he was like, if I don't get laid, a fat bitch is getting pregnant, right? And this idea that like fat women are just like your commodity, right? And like it also pushes into this idea that like you don't got to get consent from fat women to have sex with them. So like what? Like no. And it was really fucked up, and it really made me angry, right? Cuz I'm like, this is what people believe about, fat folks. And then queer community. Now, a whole nother community around fatness. Let's be real. Yeah. Okay. Queer community, I feel like they love to say they love fat people.
They love to say they love all kinds of people that they don't really love. So
they be like, oh, yes, live your fat life. You so good. Like, you post a picture. I see you, baby. I see you, daddy. I do fat people. But I find that queer community has similar aesthetics to the straight community. It's just we like a little fluidity to our looks. Like we like a gender queer look, but we still like the androgynous look to look like, this standard of beauty that is basically the same standard of beauty as the straight community.
Light skin and thin.
Right. Light skin, thin. If you can have like, a boyish figure, then like you have this body that's like, that people want, right? Because like, it's like you can kind of play your different, play up this like androgyny, right? I do find that like queer community does like have fat queer love. Shout out to some beautiful fat queer couples I know, like Mandisa and Wendy. Y'all are a lovely, beautiful, fat, queer, couple. And I'm trying to be, like in awe of y'all, right? And I know that exists. I haven't really had experiences finding fat, queer love. But also, I feel like there's this, like, thing where it's like fat, queer people have to date fat, queer people, right? And I don't mind dating fat people. I love fat people, and I'm fat, right? So why should I be afraid of fat people? But for all my life, I've been attracted to my polar opposite. I like really, really small people, usually. Like, a lot of times I like really skinny, really short people, right? Like, or really tall, or really lanky. I really like, since I was a kid. Even when I like boys, I usually like the boys that, like, people did not like the nerdy, really skinny, like, black boy in the corner, like, who just had, like, a really nice face. I really like a really nice face. But, like, that is my, right. And this, they don't even gotta be sweet. They can be mean, but, like, I just really like that aesthetic, right? Mm-hmm. And I think it's okay to like somebody, right? Like, I don't let my aesthetic, like, what I like, consume me to the point where I don't like talk to other people. But I feel like when I am trying to date or trying to, if I look at someone, I'm scared, to talk to someone who may fit my aesthetic. And I'm also, feeling like I have to date, other queer fat folks. And I feel like fat folks should have options. We should be able to feel like we can look at, a whole list of people. We can go on Tinder and we can swipe right and be like, oh, that person's fine. And like hope, and that we can like have people swipe back at us, right? Like that we don't have to be like, oh, like I do this, right, y'all? Like I go on Tinder and I look at someone and I find them attractive and I say, oh, they're probably not going to like fat people. So I swipe left. And I do that. And yeah, you can say I do that to myself, but like,
this. Mm-hmm. I feel like there's this thing that happens with social media too, and social media has taken like what is already hurtful, painful, and an issue, and like complicated and layered, but like adding social media on top of it as another layer, because then you're able to like scroll through and like visually see. And also, I'm all for people doing whatever they want to do with their body, how, but I also think there's pressure. Like when like all the times there's people making fun of women who do any kinds of like body alteration, because I've had many conversations where people are like, oh, this person, like they'll be like, oh yeah, like my homegirl sucked her fat from her stomach and put it in her ass, like all these different things that I've heard people talk about, and people will shame people for these things, but I'm like, they're like women, like not just women, like people in general, now coming up with these ideas of like. Like, how am I saying, like, the relationship that they have with their body, they're not making this up. Like, they're not coming up with this themselves. Like, there's a very real, like, push. And I feel like with social media and, like, seeing images and, like, seeing what photos have thousands of likes and seeing who gets attention, seeing who gets fame, like, I can't be mad at somebody who's like, I'm going to go do these things now. Because, you know what, sometimes, like, surgically, if folks can afford it, is, like, I guess I'm just saying that I ain't mad at them because I get where it comes from. Because I see it. When I scroll through, I feel things too.
I feel like thinking about that, like, there's this, like I watch trashy reality shows, like, sometimes. Probably a good amount of times. Like, I had that, like, 1 week out of, like, a while where I'm just, like, I'm about to finish the whole entire seasons of this very trashy Love and Hip Hop, you know, show. And what I see on those shows is I see the same body over and over. It's like, you can buy this body at the store. It's going to be like big titties that sit up high, big old ass, and a small waist. And, you know, long hair, which I think is cute and beautiful on some people, but I feel like we don't have a variety of bodies because we feel so pressured and shamed to look a certain way, right? Yeah. And, like, I think that we should have, like, you know, different types of bodies, right? Like, I think that folks get alterations for many reasons. I think that folks get gender, you know, reassignment surgery, right, to feel affirmed in their gender, right? Like, I think folks get booties because, you know, maybe they grew up with a flat ass and they want a little bit of booty, you know, like, and I don't think that's really wrong. If I could have a little bit of booty, I would. Right, like, you know, I don't think it's wrong to, like, want to have a larger chest, but what I think happens is that it's not about your larger chest, it's about a larger chest that's the chest of every celebrity you know, right? It's not about your nose, it's about a nose that's a nose of the cutest girl on Instagram. Like, I think when we reach a point, because I think that, like, I believe that, like, plastic surgery is a part of the evolution factor, right? Like, it is the start of people being able to create the bodies and the machines. Like, our body is a machine, right? And creating the machine that we want, right? But I don't think that our machines have to be carbon copies. You know, I think that we can have these or the beautiful world creating who they are.
So it brings me to my next question. For you, what does holistic health mean? Like, what does it look like? We can break it down into categories of, like, mind, body, heart, soul. Is that easier?
No, I can do it all together. Okay. I think for me, it means something that I'm not at, right? It means that, like, I feel like it means, like, a wellness and journey, right? And the, like, journey that you'll kind of always be on. And I think it's, like, having the connection of the mind, the body, the spirit, and the mental health, right? And it's like having all of those align. But I think that as we move through life, like, our relationship to this holistic health, it changes, right? You know, different things happen to us and they shape the ways that, like, our mind and our bodies and our health and everything are connected. Because, you know, if I experience a tragedy, then I disassociate from my body. And I feel like you just kind of, holistic health is about always kind of working on those things. And I think it goes back to, like, what I was talking about, like, with being a diabetic and then being a fat person, right? Like my holistic health is saying I actually have to deal with the psychological reasons of why I have an eating disorder, right? Why I overeat. And then I also have to deal with like the very real thing of like having a healthy diet, right? And not a diet, a healthy lifestyle, because fuck diets, fuck the industry, fuck their fat phobia. But like I have to deal with, having like actually having people, like having an alignment in like my heart and my spirit, and like having a value of my body. Because in some ways me overeating as a coping mechanism is that I keep harming my body, that I'm not really, having this care for my body. And I think it's about being gentle, right? Like it's kind of hard to like change habits, For me, a coping mechanism I started when I was 8. Like I've been coping that way for a very fucking long time, and it's a hard habit to break. And it's an addiction, right? So it's like totally different than just like, you can eat a bag of carrots and you'll be okay. It's like it's actually an addiction, and it's something that I have to work on. But in order to get there, I have to have holistic health, right? I just have to value holistic health, right? I can't just say, I'm going to start eating healthy and I'm going to get there, because that's not going to be enough, right? I have to find ways to, one, reduce the harm so I can live my life on a daily basis, because with addiction, you don't want to just cold turkey that shit, because it's not very real, right? People don't stop using drugs just because you take them from them, but you also need to work on the mind, right? Because you can't just be like, I cut it cold turkey, I'm good, because then the mind is still not health, right? So then the mind gets you back into the place where you want to do the harmful behaviors again, right? So I feel like holistic health to me is like taking into account all those aspects of what makes you a functioning human, and focusing in and trying to like find the wellness plans and the wellness programs.
Okay. So if you could give us 3 takeaways for self-care / affirmation / self-love, like 3 things that you feel like are really important on this journey or in this process, what would it be?
Process. Canadian. I think I would say identify. One tip I would say, identify what makes you comfortable and run with it, even if it gives you a false sense of confidence. I know we talked about clothing as a shield, but in some ways that false sense of confidence, it starts eating into you. You start thinking you looking good in the mirror, you start like leaving your house knowing that you felt like you dressed great. So I think like, that's one thing. Do what like makes you comfortable, and even like, take on those things that you think are just fake. 2, I think I would say like start to like try to identify the things that you have been hiding, whether that's like, and find the ways that you get to it. Like art and writing was a part of that for me, and performing. That's where I got my erotica. That's where I got my, I actually deal with fatphobia. That's ritual, right? Like, I think that we have to implement rituals in our lives to be fully holistically functioning, right? So I think like when you have the set of things that you do every day that's repetitive, it can actually be healing. Because I feel like ritual is like what sustains this is what sustains our health, is what makes us whole. We have to have a routine.
I feel like for me, when I think about ritual, like ritual is part of my healing. Ritual is part of like for me what holistic health means, because I think about like ritual for me is like how like my makeup process is like incredibly like, meditative. Like when I'm doing my makeup, like I'm lighting sage, and like that's part of my ritual. It's actually part of how I care for myself and prepare myself to like enter into the world. And it's very much like a ritualistic process. Like watch, like I don't know how to even explain it. The way I feel when I'm doing it, the entire process of it is very ritualistic. I go through a very similar process every. Okay. Thank you for this beautiful conversation and for really being open, honest, and vulnerable with us. If folks are interested in connecting with you, where can they reach you?
First off, thank you for having me. I really had fun. It's a great conversation. If you want to reach me, I don't have a website because I am a fuck nigga and I really have work and content, but for some reason I don't put it up. And I do need to like document more and like do more, but of course
the life of an artist.
Yeah, I don't put up what I need. But if you really want to contact me, I would say the best way to contact me is through Instagram, and my Instagram is at refresh_esh. And that's spelled @REFRESH_ESH.
I'll link it somewhere.
Yeah. And you can DM me first. I am one of those people where you have to request a follow because I just don't want a bunch of crazy people following me. Sorry for using the word crazy because you know what, like, I mean, that's a stigma word, but, you know, I don't want a bunch of people following me that, like, I don't, you know, who don't have the best intentions, right? So just slide in my DMs, send me a quick message. If you're trying to holler, also slide in my DMs.